Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome to Watchbox, and thanks for logging on. If you love this watch, email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. It's in the description below. It's your purchase and pricing email question line for buying this or any watch you see on any Watchbox platform. Reach out to me directly, tmosso at thewatchbox.com. This may be the most fascinating watch you encounter today. I know I can say the same. This is a rarely seen and poorly documented early to mid-1990s Cartier Tonneau XL in platinum, a timepiece that was built in France by Cartier Paris. It is not part of the CPCP collection that came later. It is an earlier iteration of the design that Louis Cartier first coined in 1906. And indeed, the Tonneau of 1906 was the second Cartier wristwatch design after the Santos of 1904. Let's take a look at the basic dimensions here. The first thing that called my attention was the fact that this is not 51 millimeters lug to lug like the 2006 watch. So when I measured it from lug to lug, this particular tonneau is 46.2, which is much more traditionally sized. It's 7.8 millimeters thick, and from side to side, not including the crown, it is 26.5 millimeters. The crown exquisitely is actually onyx capped with a lovely beaded profile. The crown, like the case, exquisitely white in platinum. Taking a look at the case band on my wrist, you can see that the shape of the tonneau, as tonneau cases have been since the first quarter of the 20th century, their shape works with your wrist. And you can see that the timepiece has plenty of clearance on each side of my wrist. I could recommend it for a wrist as small as 13.5 centimeters circumference, maybe 13. It is very flat and will sit underneath any cuff. And you can see down the barrel that in spite of the large straight lugs, I still have plenty of clearance on each side of my 16 centimeter wrist. Taking a look at the strap and the buckle, everything about this watch is fascinating. The strap is relatively simple. It's alligator on the top, large rectangular scale, semi-gloss, monotone stitch, and a folded edge. It's black. And then we have a buckle that is in the fashion, let me get rid of this stupid tag, in the fashion of the buckle designed by Louis Cartier in 1909, which was the first ever deployant clasp for a wristwatch. So this captures much of the function as well as the aesthetic of that pioneering deployant clasp. But what caught my eye here is that it's Swiss made in 18 karat white gold, because you'll note it's a little bit warmer in tone than the platinum of the case. So the buckle was made in Switzerland, but you're about to realize that that is not true of the case. I should also mention that there are no minder loops on this strap because the Cartier design was originally conceived to loop the strap underneath and fold away excess length so it would sit underneath the strap and the buckle, creating a very clean look once properly sized and donned on your wrist. Now, the case here, with the exception of the screws, which are white gold, the case is white platinum 950. As you can see, the lugs have been welded on to create a handsome junction that is old school fabrication, but these things were clearly not stamped out in one piece. Bars and screws are used to hold the strap to the case, an antiquarian method that's more expensive to manufacture but also more secure than spring bars on the wrist. There's a contrast, and you can see there is a curvature to this case. It's not a broncard and flat on the back. It does have some camber, but there's a contrast between the satin of the flanks and the polish of the hood. And of course, everything goes in through the case back, so the case flank as well as the bezel are one seamless piece as viewed from the top. The crystal, as you can see, is box section and cambered, and anything but cheap, as it is difficult to fit and then achieve water resistance with a shaped crystal. And this is a remarkably contoured crystal. You can see it actually splays out, curving to each side. It curves lengthwise, and then you have that wonderful camber and box section profile. The dial has that rose lathe guilloche splaying out from the center, but it is not the CPCP. If you look at the CPCP from 2006, you will find quite a few differences in how the dial was styled. But the basic elements here are present and correct, with an elongated silver white dial, black radially arrayed Roman numerals with a watchmaker's 4, and then blued baton, or I should say truthfully broadsword style hands at center. Underneath the case back, unlike many Cartier watches of the 90s and 80s, this one is mechanical. You can see the caseback itself made in France, and I'm confident that this watch's year of manufacture was 1995 because I've tracked through auction catalogs the serial number to within 3 digits. So I found 109683 with its booklet and warranty stamped May of 1995. What's fascinating is that that watch featured the French maker's mark as well as the French hallmarks, but that model also featured a Swiss hallmark on the back, suggesting distribution partly accounted for the way these watches were hallmarked. As you can see, this is a Cartier Paris product. Historically, there were 3 Cartier branches: New York, Paris, and London, and this was made in France. The case was made in France. The product was made in France. Only the clasp and the movement on this watch come from Switzerland. About that movement, it is what Cartier calls a Cartier 78-1, which is a manual wind ETA caliber. The ETA number is 2512. Manual wind, 44-hour power reserve. It beats away at 21,600 vibrations per hour. It pivots on 17 jewels, and it is compact. That is the number one requirement for a watch like this. The movement is 2.85 millimeters thick by 17.2 millimeters in diameter. This is Cartier as you imagine: rich, rare, exclusive, and slightly mysterious, as even in a convention of watch nerds, you're unlikely to find even one who's familiar with the origins of this rarely produced and rarely seen early to mid 90s model. Assume 2 to 3 ATM of water resistance, which is splash only, as this is not a sports watch. But in every other regard, can you think of a more elegant dress option? Reach out to Tim Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.